One, two, three, four.
One thing that this time at home has helped me refine is what my why is, what my mission is. My mission is to tell stories about working class women who turn their pain into power. That's it. And if there has ever been a time where we need to turn our pain into power, it is right now. And so whether that is the story of a woman who lives in a small town in Minnesota whose husband is cheating on her and she needs to find her voice, after a personal tragedy, or it's the story of, a woman who's a single mom from middle America who has a mom that's addicted to opioids, who takes up mixed martial arts as a way to learn how to combat the perils of her everyday life. That's like the next script that I've been pitching. Or if it's the story of a mill mother in the 1920s based in my hometown who lost 4 of her children to the whooping cough over the course of a few months. Like these are stories that inspire me. And they're stories of bravery and boldness, but they're working class women. They are everyday women. They need to, look and sound and behave just like any of the people that we would see on the street. And I think by telling those types of stories, we can show how ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And whether that means they're doing extraordinary things and get a lot of like public attention about it, or they just become the personal heroes within their own homes, or whatever it is. I feel like those are stories that inspire and provoke and encourage the wider population and can also entertain. Well, I made it because I love the story, and I love the writer. So Thomas Ward and I go way back. We've known each other for over a decade now, and I was an early supporter of the stage version of International Falls. So it was a 2-hander that premiered at a Fringe festival in Dallas way back in the day. I knew it was a great story, and that it would be something that I'd love to direct, and that as a first feature independent film, the fact that so much of it takes place in one location would make it possible for us to do it on an indie budget. So that was sort of just the genesis of the idea. And then we went through several iterations of the draft. And then it was just about finding the financial support to get it going. And a lot of that came through supporters that I had found in my work as a theater director in the DC theater community. So most of our investors are people who also invest highly in the DC theater scene, who had seen my work in that. So even though I was, by Hollywood standards, an unknown director in the film world, these people had seen all of my stage work and knew that I was capable of crafting a story. So they were willing to kind of take that risk, I guess you could say. Rachel Harris was the first actor we reached out to, and she fell in love with the script. Because it's the story that I think brings people on to say yes to these independent projects. It's like getting the first yes is the hardest part, and then things get easier after that. So Rob had worked with Rachel before. They had done like some things together in the past, and like Kevin Nealon came on board because Rachel, I think, sent him a text message and it was like, hey, there's this fun cop role. Do you want to, would you be interested in coming out for a day or two? International Falls is my first feature length film, but I've done like the theater equivalent of that length dozens of times. Right. So, I'm working with designers and crew and stuff with that. And then with my and more industrial and commercial work within film, I was working with crews with larger budgets, and even than what I had for International Falls. I'd say the biggest difference with International Falls was that, because I was like a co-producer and I was saying yes to the money and writing all of the checks, carrying the financial strain of the film while directing was one of the hardest things, because then, I couldn't just, advocate for the art to the producer. I was always wearing both hats, and carrying that stress was a very, very, very different thing. Because when I would push for more time or want more time, I had to look at the financial ramifications of that. All of my like formal education is in theater. So like the craft of and obviously some things stand for both, right? Just the art of storytelling, building a strong narrative, knowing how to build beats and objectives and action in a scene, conflict, all that kind of stuff is just good storytelling, no matter what medium you're working in. And then I think like a lot of people, I had a professor that just really helped me see that theater could be an actual profession and not just a hobby. Took my first directing class, and I remember in my first directing class, we were doing this small 10-minute scene, and I'd come back and report to class about, I started to do this exercise with the class or with my cast. And I remember my professor asking one time, like, where did you learn to do that? And I was just like, I made it up. I mean, that seemed like the right thing to do to help get them comfortable with X, Y, and Z. And then, towards the end of that semester, he like looked at me and had one of those moments where he was like, you're a born director. And just having someone say that to me was like enough to get me through all of the insecurities that, sort of like could push you away from that as you sort of try to build a career, because it's hard. I didn't get into grad school the first time I tried. I had to work my way up as, I was a light and soundboard op for a while. I was a stage manager for a while. I worked at a theater where I would stage manage, and then I had to clean the bathrooms, and I directed readings. I did a lot of assisting. I still did my choreography work. So it was really just about, like, for me, building up the experience and kind of saying yes to everything, because I knew I loved it, and I knew that I was like, I don't know, I think there's something in my personality that's like built for it, I have the love of the story. It's a film I made for the Disability Film Challenge, which is this awesome program that they do. I mean, I guess it would be considered like a festival. And, they were doing all online programming this year because of the pandemic. And they send out, it's a film challenge because they send out the parameters of what the story is going to be just like a few days before the final story is due. So I knew that the format was going to be like documentary style. That was like one of the guidelines. And I knew, that because it is the Disability Film Challenge, that, one of the parameters there is that a person with a disability either needs to be like in front of the camera or have a significant role behind the camera, either as a director, writer, producer, something like that. And, sitting here is like 2 or 3 months into the pandemic, and, feeling like a lot of my artistic opportunities have been stripped away. I was like, I'm gonna make a film about my daughter, and talk about our adventures. And we had not been very public about her Down syndrome diagnosis, and not because we were ashamed of it at all. Like, anyone we talk to about that, it's like just part of who she is. But we always wanted people to see the person first and the disability second, right? So to us, she's just Isla, who happens to have Down syndrome. And so I wanted to tell a story that showed that adventure. And, also as we were kind of locked down and not getting to go anywhere, because I love traveling, it was a way for me to kind of relive the exciting travels we had during her first year of life, when we were going to all of these film festivals for International Falls. So, she took her first flight when she was 2 months old. to come with me to the premiere of the film. So we walked the red carpet together, and then she was on like 17 flights that first year, and that included like a trip to Paris, trip to Ireland, all these different places. So the film challenge was it became just a beautiful opportunity for me to tell a story that I was already really wanting to tell anyway, like a short, tiny 3-minute thing. Here's this thing, this scary diagnosis, that honestly was like very painful for a while and really, really scary, but it's also been like the greatest gift of my entire life, and she's perfect. And, I think there are just so many stories out there that are like that. And I guess I just feel like if they resonate with me and can have like a broader reach, like it's going to resonate with other people as well. And I think too, as we craft our history, because 20 years from now, they will be telling the stories of what this moment is. My fear is that too often the history that lives on is what's in the headlines. And so often what's in the headlines forgets the nuance of what's actually happening, right? You get these like hugely divisive sort of opinions about things. And I think the real history and the real change comes in the everyday conversations that we have with people, right? Like the shit that we're posting on social media, like the headlines that you're seeing, they are like the strongest side of our opinion, right? But a lot of them are devoid of like the nuance of a personal experience in those stories. And I think that is where our work as theater and filmmakers comes in, because in that art, in these stories we tell, we get more than 5 minutes of someone's attention span, like on a headline. We get to bring them in for a longer story and explore nuance, tell the stories, especially the hard ones, because we all are very tempted to like brush the hard facts under the rug, and that's how history just keeps on repeating itself. And so I think, I guess all that to say, like it's a theme I'm very much exploring.